Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today's edition of Ask a Leopard Owner takes us to Fort Lauderdale, Florida on a Leopard 40 sailing catamaran. Before introducing Steph and Marji, I want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Chris, and in addition to being a Leopard 45 owner myself, I get to work with members of the Leopard community, helping to share their stories of adventure, curiosity, and exploration on their Leopard. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session is being recorded and will be published on leopardcatamarans.com in the coming days. In other words, don't worry about writing everything down. You'll receive an email to this video once it's published. To submit your questions at any point today, go ahead and click the Q&A button at the bottom of this screen. We'll do our best to answer all of them, but if we run out of time, we'll share an email address at the end to submit your questions. And lastly, there's a 2-question survey that will pop up after we wrap up today. We'd love your feedback so we can learn what you liked and things that we could do better in future editions. Let's take a look at what we'll cover. First, we'll learn about Steph and Marji, how they transitioned into their sailing journey, some tips for living aboard. Happy anniversary, by the way. I know that today's the year anniversary of closing on your Leopard 40, so high five. And some training that they've done and just advice with sailing with pets. And we'll have Q&A at the end. So Steph and Marji, hello, welcome. Thank you for sharing your journey and experience with us today. Tell us a little bit about where you are and a little bit more about yourselves.
Well, hello. I'm Marji, and I'm a retired Army medical officer, spending 27 years in the service. I'm an occupational therapist and love what I do. Although I'm originally from Oregon, I call Florida my home. I didn't realize how much I love the water until I met Steph. And then even more so, I loved the ocean once we moved to Key West and we dabbled around in it.
Hi, I'm Steph. I am a retired / recovering educator. I taught most of my years in Las Vegas, where I had a boat for many, many years on Lake Mead. I grew up on the lakes of the Napa Valley, so I've spent my whole life on boats. I love boats. I love being on boats. I love talking about boats. And I love that I'm on a boat right now, and I'm excited to share a story, and we really appreciate the opportunity to do that with you today. We own a 2019 Leopard 40. Her name is ThickChick. She's a sailing catamaran. We bought her, like Chris mentioned, we closed on her 1 year ago today, and we're still here. We're still smiling. We're happy. We love it. It's been an amazing wild ride, more than I could have ever conceived. We're currently considered part-time because we do maintain another home, but our commitment to learning and really to life on the boat has us aboard full-time at the moment. We're contemplating whether or not right now we should stay on the New River or we should head north for the particular season. We'll be making that decision in the next couple of days, but we're excited to be here with you today.
Awesome. Thank you both. Let's go a little bit just in terms of explaining to folks how you got here. Walk us through this slide, if you would.
Sure.
Okay, well, in 2016, I decided to retire from the Army, and I then entertained the idea of trading in my boots for some flip-flops. But we weren't quite ready to jump on a boat yet because we had so much left to learn. So we decided to buy a house in Key West, where we spent the next 4 years learning the ocean on our 26-foot boat. We learned the waters around the lower keys and everything, and it was great. Steph and I have talked for years about living on a boat someday. We've gone to several boat shows, and originally we had fallen in love with a 50-foot Azimut. That was a great boat, by the way. But that was before my colleague, Mike Casimir, who owns and runs a sailing school in Key West. He invited us along on his 38 Veneto for a sail trip for a week to Dry Tortugas. I'll tell you, that sealed the deal with any question we had between a powerboat and a sailboat. We just fell in love with sailing.
For us, really, this was the culmination of like a 10-year plan. We would spend every spring break headed to South Florida to go to the boat shows. We dreamed of being on a boat. We would look at boats and everything we could about it. We didn't really know how it would come to be because she's right. When we retired, we weren't quite ready to jump on a boat. So the time that we spent on the ocean, transitioning from lake life to ocean, I worked on a dive boat and did some different things, and we learned how to navigate the ocean and some different things. Made us feel that we were a little bit more ready to jump into a boat. So after about, what I like to say is you can take the army out of the girl, but you can't take the girl, or you can take the girl out of the army, but not the army out of the girl. And after about 3 or 4 years, Margie was itching again. And I thought, you know what, maybe this is the time to try it. And we got to be a little brave, maybe a little crazy, but that was the point at which we said, okay, let's really get serious about what we want to do. And so we started looking, like she said, at powerboats first, because that was my experience base, you know, having grown up in the Lakes and Napa Valley and then on Lake Mead. I didn't really have any experience with sailing, but when her coworker took us on a trip, I mean, that was it. The first time the wind caught the sails and the engines went off and you felt nature pull you forward.
And sideways.
And sideways. We loved it. And we really, really loved it. And so that's sort of how we got to the point where we were looking for a boat.
And it's incredible. I know this year that we were both in the Bahamas together, and
Yeah.
we saw each other once or close to 3 months, but the two of you sailed so much and explored so much. And so to hear where you were just a few years ago and to have witnessed firsthand where you are today, it's awesome. Let's dig into a little bit about what that transition looked like.
Okay, well, there's a lot of different points on transitioning, but to talk about the very first one, learn how to live small. Oh my gosh, this could be the most challenging thing of boat life. I like stuff, and I had to rethink my stuff. Does it fit on the boat? And what purpose does it serve? I don't know. We learned to get rid of, single-use items and utilize those items that had more of a dual function or several functions, such as a Instapot and replacing our toaster with a toaster convection oven that does a lot of stuff. And even my coffee maker, which I can't live without, it has a froth function, tea, water. We just had to learn how to live small.
For sure. Also, and this one was really a big one, is learn to trust your intuition on the water, whether it's, weather or, literally like weather, what's coming at you, or it's whether or not you should leave this day or the next, or fixing something, or any nagging feeling that you have. We have found that if you do not ignore those impulses and those promptings and you pay close attention to your intuition, it just seems to make it a little bit smoother for us, for sure.
Absolutely.
Also, be fully committed to life on the boat. It's not for us. I would have to say, you see that we have, that we're two petite women. We have a larger mountain to climb in some ways. We have to be fully committed to life on the boat. We researched for 10 years about boats, but specifically once we determined that we wanted a sailing catamaran, and we'll talk a little bit later about how we came to that conclusion. We decided that we would, everything else needed to go on hold, and we needed to be fully committed to this, to this path. So that's what we did. We also did that by trying to get as much experience as possible, whether you can charter a boat or you have a friend that can take you, or you want to work as crew. The more experience that you gain on the water will absolutely serve you. I feel like we've gained a year's experience, traveled about 5,000 nautical miles, and I feel like an 8-week-old puppy in some ways, in reality. So learning to trust my intuition, I'm beginning to feel, those little seeds of, okay, that's familiar to me. I know that's familiar. I can do that. Also, intuition with your partner and your crew and the people that you're on board with, those relationships are so important, and they're really important when you're on a letter H, and then also with danger, I would say, anytime you sense any kind of danger, you definitely want to do that. And then work as a team with your partner or your crew. There is no I in teamwork, and it's what makes your dream work. So
that's right.
Lastly,
know yourself and your personal needs.
For sure.
It's a great advice. You hear a lot of people who come to being on a boat, and for some couples, it's a tight space, and you're around each other all the time, right? So communication, a lot of things touched on are super important. You mentioned the letter H, and just so folks know what you're talking about, just give us a quick definition of that.
I'm a teacher, so I always think Sesame Street, and the shape of the catamaran is like a letter H, and that's sort of your living space. We live on a letter H.
Yeah, so if you were to look at the catamaran top down, two holes are the side
from
of
the
the H
sky.
And then the bridge.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Hey, no sweat. I know we're about to talk about kind of why Leopard, what brought you to a catamaran. But first, a lot of folks who have joined us today are either waiting for their leopard to come, they're on the journey on figuring out, what to get, and is this, something that's of interest to them. So tell us a little bit about the 5-year plan and maybe some structure that folks can glean from your experience on how they can accomplish this too.
Sure. We always say failing to plan is a plan to fail. And what I mean by that is both Steph and I come from career backgrounds where we've had to utilize short and long-term goals and planning. So we have created what we call our 5-year plan. It's a really flexible 5-year plan. And I think I'll let Steph talk more in depth about it.
We felt when we decided to do this that it was a pretty large task for us, monumental really. And so we thought, okay, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So we had to segment it up into sizes that seemed doable for the two of us based on our different strengths and weaknesses and experience. So we started with, okay, what do we want to be able to do in the first year? And we thought, okay, so we're transitioning from power boating on, say, a 26-foot boat to learning to sail on a 40-foot catamaran. That's a big gap. So obviously we needed to get some education. So we need to learn the systems of the boat, and there are many. We needed to get the education that we needed so that we could learn to sail, which we did. And we chose to do that the first year in a marina. That would allow us also to train the animals and ourselves and keep us close. And so that first year, we really, we actually met our goal early, which I'm really proud of. We worked hard to do that. We had good people who helped get us here. And so I would say that first year, we just really wanted to stick to those 3 themes. By years 2 to 4, we feel that the one thing is with this particular thing is you have to be flexible. You cannot set rigid timetables for arrivals or for departures or for growth and development. We're people and we bloom at our own pace and at our own rate. And so you'll see in our plan, we've got years 2 to 4. We want to really learn the Caribbean and learn and refine, the true art of sailing. It's one thing to be, buy a boat and get on it and power through everything. But I've really learned in the last year that the art of sailing is beautiful and it takes time to learn. And we have some ways to go. And we think the Caribbean is a perfect place to do that. Mm-hmm. We spent some time in the Bahamas and we did 95% of everything, and it went really well. So we're confident that by years 2 to 4, we'll get through the Caribbean. And then Marjie's years 3 to 5, she wants to go through the Panama Canal. So that's
Tonga, Tahiti, it's just, like I say, it's flexible. We may change our mind. We may not.
Right.
The key to success.
Yeah, it's
flexibility.
When you have your house with you, it's it removes a lot of the constraints on where and what you do. I really like on this side where early on you decided to stay close, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale, lots of great upfitters there to have work done. So that smart to incrementally go farther and farther as the plan plays out and you get more comfortable. This next one is really, I think a lot of folks will be interested to hear your perspective on this, is why a Leopard. I think when I was going through my journey about buying a boat, going to all the boat shows, and it's easy they all start to blend and look the same. They're big white fiberglass things with masts on them. And then you start to look at the interiors and you really just get drawn to that. But there's really a lot more to it than just kind of the finish of the kitchen and the galley, right? So tell us about some of the factors that drew you to a Leopard and how you got to the 40 that you're on today.
Truly, that's so well said, Chris, so well said. Well, one of my favorite things about Marji is she absolutely loves research. She loves to research every single detail about every single brand, style, size. And I love that because I get the Cliff Notes, and that's, as a teacher, exactly what I want is the Cliff Notes. And so it's perfect, it works out. And so I could give you an answer as basic as the front door, which would be, I would say, mostly true. It's fantastic. It really is. That's not the whole truth, though. We will tell you a little bit about the front door and why it particularly sold.
Yeah.
We spent the entire time we were in the Bahamas, we were able to open the front door and slide these glass panels back, and we had air through. We didn't need to run our air conditioning one time.
Not one time.
It's really, really fantastic. So our number one thing that we love most about the Leopard design would be that front door and that hatch. Also, we really like the helm station up high. I'm 5'2.5", 3, 4 if I'm gonna lie.
5'8".
She's 5'5". We have difficulty seeing sometimes, so that helm station up high really, really helps us out a lot. I really enjoy that. And then lastly, the layout of the boat is smart and efficient and clean looking.
Big
And
windows all over. When I'm cooking in the kitchen, I
Sure.
have a
huge,
picturesque
gorgeous
windows.
window.
I love it.
It's beautiful.
So I think the reason why we chose the Leopard that we have is we like, well, first of all, we like to think that she chose us.
She did.
We looked at several boats, and honestly, we started looking at boats that were 45 to 48 feet, thinking that we needed more. And
We didn't know.
ironically, we had to actually walk across a Leopard 40 to get to a 45 that we were looking at. And we walked across that Leopard 40 and instantly fell in love. We thought, oh my gosh, this is perfect for us. She was big enough. She wasn't too big. She wasn't too small. Her mast height was still small enough that if we needed to go through the ICW, the bridges are like 65 feet, we could go through the ICW. So we had, more options. And she already had some really fantastic modifications added. This particular one being the solar power in the batteries, which
We'll talk about
drew us
later.
in. And the
For
washer
sure.
and dryer is very important.
And lastly, we heard all around the different groups that we were in and the research that we did that Leopard has an excellent reputation as a good boat, a good sailing catamaran. So we were
Absolutely.
also interested in that. We are not, you're not going to catch us in any races by any stretch, but we want to be as safe and as stable as possible. So we appreciated the reputation as well as the price and the design, which was perfect for us.
And it's an interesting origin story. If you think the Leopard brand was really born out of the charter business, like people wanted those boats. And if you think about designing a boat for charter and having to do maintenance on any boat around the world, the access is wonderful. If you have to hop
Yes.
into the engine room and so when you start to think about, okay, what does it take to run the boat, and knowing that it's not only durable but designed to be able to easily service at any base around the world, it's a combination of everything you said, and for me also that. But
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the journey. Bunch of ways to go pick up the skills to learn how to sail. You had a unique approach to it. Tell us both both of you tell us how you got here.
Well, initially, we arranged to have a teaching captain come teach us the ASA classes on our own boat. And then for some reasons beyond our control, that didn't work out. And so we were unable to take those classes until after we had moved the ThickChick to the Chesapeake Bay. In the early fall, we had a wonderful teaching captain, Patricia Nolan, who owns and runs the sister ship sailing school. She came and taught us lessons in the Annapolis area. We'd like to call her our sailing angel.
We've been really fortunate. We have had many teachers already, both good and bad, and we've learned a ton already. But basically, exactly what Margie said, when we first purchased our boat, our immediate concern, because we did do things a little differently, which was we bought the boat and then we were going to learn to sail. And that's really because Margie couldn't wait. She was terribly excited. So that's what we did. And so when we first got onto our boat, our initial situation didn't work out well. So we contacted the Facebook page Women Who Sail, and there's an amazing community of women there who we hired a delivery captain, Captain Judy Hildebrand, and she helped us take our boat from Fort Lauderdale to the Chesapeake, and we learned so much. We went 5 days offshore, and then 8 or 9 days in the ICW.
We were kind of in and out depending on the weather.
We learned a ton, right? Then the situation worked out where Captain Pat was able, from Sister Ship Sailing School, came to Annapolis and taught us on our own boat. So we had a very unique and different and in some ways ideal situation, and we're very grateful for all of the people and the pieces that have helped us, because that's really if you're going to embark on a journey this large, you have to look for the helpers. And so it's important like when you're selecting your boat, that the reputation is good, that your broker, that person's going to be on your side and helpful to you, that your instructors are compatible with what your plan is. All of those things are really critical when you're making your choices about how you want to do your own journey, because the truth is there's no one right way to do this. And would I do ours any differently? It's hard to say. I really don't think so. I think we've really had an amazing experience, one that I would wish for everybody,
Yeah.
right, in most ways. And so I think a lot of our good fortune has come from our planning. We've spent some time planning how we wanted this to look, and you can kind of manifest your own reality.
Yeah.
Just a quick build on the choice to, would you do anything differently? Someone asked in the Q&A, hey, if you had to start over, would you do the Leopard 40 again, or would you look at any other cat?
No, absolutely. We talked about that all the time. I always say, if I had to do it all over again, knowing what I know thus far after living and sailing for a year on this boat, I would have chose the same boat. I personally would have chosen
Given the same
boat.
variables.
I like the size. I like the way she handles. I love the design of this boat. It fits us so perfect. I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Okay, here's the truth. I think a catamaran purchase is like a buffet, right? You're looking at it and everything looks amazing, right? And you're like, I want this and that. And it's hard sometimes to really think about, okay, how am I going to manage this? How will I make this fit my life into this, or my skills into this? And so at first I was really not open to walking the 40. I was like, no, we're going to need more space. But when we had to cross it to get over to the other boat, and I thought, okay, listen, there's two of us here, right? If for whatever reason, maybe extreme sickness, I don't know, if somebody needed to do it on their own, it's a couple of Davids. So the 40 seemed really like a smart choice. And then I'll be honest, we really wanted the variable of being able to go up the ICW, the Intercoastal Waterway. So the shorter mast on the 40 seemed like a little bit more protection.
Quick question. I think now's the appropriate spot to ask you, just to give the background on the name of the boat. But also there's one of the participants who's joined us, Jay is raising her hand. And Jay, if you have a question, just pop it in the Q&A and we'll get to it. So tell us a little bit about ThickChick and the name, and what does it mean for you?
Well, ThickChick is really a brave woman, right? So I used to teach the inner city in Las Vegas, and they would say, oh, you're thick, miss, you're thick. And it's really about being brave. And the truth is, we're not very brave, but we've really had to be. I mean, I guess we could say we're brave now, but there are moments, where we haven't felt very brave. So we kind of view her, and you'll notice, your boat too will take on its own entity and her own personality. And she's brave, the way she's, taken us to the different places that we've gone, and the amazing experiences that we've had, both with wind and weather and whatnot. I mean,
and she's a thick chick.
She is a thick chick, literally.
Thick, a chick. I mean, it's we've been asked several times from people who they all give a thumbs up on the name. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. But they say, oh, you guys aren't very big. And it's like, well, we didn't name ourselves. We named our boat. Yeah. So to us, this boat is big, and we call her the thick chick. Right. So as an English teacher, it's also a multiple meaning word. Good question.
I love it. Let's talk a little bit about the certifications and licenses you get. So this is obviously, just great to get the experience. Also helpful in my experience when you start to negotiate with insurance carriers and folks who want to underwrite the insurance on it. So walk us through this.
Well, Chris, we actually tallied things up, and we have actually sailed over 5,000 nautical miles within this year. So I think that's pretty good. I mean, we're pretty set. We're pretty happy about that.
Related.
Great.
And as we mentioned before, we took our ASA classes through Sister Ship Sailing School with Pat. We've taken what you see on the screen, all the basic ones, the first four, 101, 103, 104, 114.
Yeah, that's a package.
Yeah, we took that as a package in Annapolis. We went to, she's taught us on our boat, but the first 101 basic keelboat sailing was on a smaller wiggy 24-foot
terrifying experience.
Anyways, so, and then we flew Pat in when we were in Key West, and we sailed to the Dry Tortugas. We spent a week there, so she can also teach us our 105 and 106 coastal navigation courses. We're, like Steph mentioned, we're working on our 6-pack, and also I'm looking at a Yanmar diesel mechanic course. It's a 2-day course in New Jersey somewhere.
Here's some real talk. If you're going to do what we're doing, and I'm so excited for you, please, email us and let us kind of go with you on that journey. I would love to help you with that if we could. But really, you're gonna need people who are going to help you. So what you want to look for is, like, Captain Pat is not only a captain, but she's also has a degree in education. And so she is a teacher. She isn't just a boat captain that teaches. So not to say that there aren't amazing ones of those two, because we've had those too. But my point here is interview the people, make sure that there's compatibility, make sure that you're on the same page and that you agree that this is what you're going to learn, and that everything is set up ahead of time so that you set yourself up for success in every possible way. Captain Pat from Sister Ship Sailing School is a professional educator, which, that's my cotton candy, y'all.
She's very patient with certain terms, because I get backwards on stuff. So she's she's a very patient and teacher. Anyways, it's good to have teachers that work with you.
And learning as an adult can be challenging. So we also had an amazing broker that still to this day, if I call, I can get help. And so I encourage you to look for the helpers, with the captains that you choose who teach you, with all of the experiences you have. There are wonderful people in this boating community that will help you. Look for them.
Great advice. At the end of the day, that this is all supposed to be fun, and the more comfortable you are with knowing how everything works, the more fun it will be.
Absolutely.
Timothy has a question in terms of, so 5,000 nautical miles in a year is awesome, incredible. So congratulations there. His question is, based on the training that you've done so far, the knowledge and comfort level you have, how comfortable would you be with longer passages? And I'll just define this to say, let's say you're going to hop in the Gulf Stream in Fort Lauderdale and go up to Montauk, New York. If there was an option right now to go do that and spend 5 days in the middle of the ocean with some additional crew to make watches easier, is that something that you feel comfortable with today or soon?
I think so. Absolutely.
You go first.
Practice, practice, practice. I absolutely feel we're not perfect. We don't know everything, and you're not going to know if you don't go. And I wouldn't go if you don't know, but you have to.
So you would feel comfortable?
I would feel comfortable. Absolutely.
And my answer is, I would say this is actually something that we're talking about, as we're navigating this insurance, portal, I guess I'll say, we have to make a decision. Do we stay here or do we travel north? And Chris, we've talked about it, hey, come on up here, he says. And so we've literally built the route already and we've looked at it. And to the question, I will tell you that if it's just Margie and I on board, I feel about 75% confident.
85 maybe.
I would feel more comfortable with a third person on a trip that far offshore, but could we do it?
Oh, of course.
We could.
Yeah, we could.
We could do it because we did do it.
Right. Yeah. The watches become uncomfortable by day 3.
I don't know. One of the things is I scheduled a Zoom call with a lady who sailed for 30 years, asked her how to do 2-person watches. Just how do you make that easier? Because I know fatigue can set in, and I just, I'm someone who likes to research every detail and get a million opinions. Yeah. So I do. Yeah,
it's great. Let's talk a little bit. Yeah, it was a good one. And then I'm going to hold you to it when I look for you somewhere up north. Talk a little bit about how the two of you ladies divide up responsibilities on the boat.
Oh, I think these split responsibilities actually were easy in a sense. There's lots of different ways to navigate this gentle divide. There's no real way. Obviously, we have a unique situation. So we find ourselves having to do and balance things our own way. And that's where common sense kind of comes in. Mm-hmm. It helps that I have, in my 27 years career in the Army, I spent the first 13 years of it as a vehicle and generator mechanic. It also helps that Steph has owned and driven boats her whole life, and she's really good navigationally. With strengths like that, the divide kind of finds itself. So one agreement we both have made is that we will both kind of master where that divide has separated us. We will master our crafts for this first year. But then once that year is up, or once we feel like we've mastered it enough, we're going to both learn each other's responsibilities.
It's really critical. It's really critical to not, to take responsibility for every aspect of boat life that you possibly can.
Right now, Steph is at the helm and Margie works the sails and anchors. And that seems to work perfectly for us. And I know that's going to evolve.
And it will evolve naturally if you let it, like anything. You know, it's like tearing a paper. The divide will find itself, and it did with us.
Awesome. Great advice. When you think about, a year in to being on the boat as of today, what are some of the tips that you might share with folks?
Oh my gosh, communication for me, for us, communication is important.
We're still alive.
Yeah, we're still alive. We still love each other. Practice. We would practice and discuss our landings and takes off anytime we left a dock and came onto a dock.
Over and over and over.
Over and over. We would talk through it. We would kind of walk through it and the what ifs. And we would do that. Okay, and this is funny, but we had to, our first kind of solo takeoff from the dock was to the pump out station.
There's a picture of that on slide 8 in the lower left corner.
Oh my gosh.
You can see the first time we landed.
We were so ecstatic because we did it. And it was only like 500 yards or something, but we still had to leave the dock and come back.
You would have thought we won the World Series.
But we practiced over and over and over, and that worked well for us. And another thing we learned to do is use headsets.
Right.
We're both short and the catamaran is big.
Right.
And when we first started this whole process.
Yeah, the advice was, if you're a real sailor, that you don't need the headsets. And we thought, okay, well, so we spent about the first 6 months yelling at each other over the top of the head and standing on the cushion and doing things that just made us look like we really didn't know very much about what we were doing, which at the time felt very true. And then at about 6 months, we took them out of the box, we charged them up, and we're like, you know what, let's give this a try. And then we could hear each other, and then we could see each other. And I mean, not see, but we could see what the other, hear what the other was doing.
We realized that we couldn't otherwise always hear or see each other because, the height difference.
Sure.
So before we got headsets, I had bought Steph a keychain that said, what did it say?
Forgive me for the things I said while docking.
Yeah. So, important, it's really important, and communication is key.
That's true. The other thing, just, as somebody who has intensely studied how the brain learns, be patient with yourself while you're learning. You're going to have to practice and practice and practice. And it just takes a while to get the feel. And, sometimes being an adult learner is uncomfortable at best. And so be patient with yourself while you practice. Be a student, learn everything about everything, and don't be afraid to ask other people. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you really need it. It's really important. Yeah, look for the helpers. It's really important that you don't treat this like an island, because it'll be the boaters and the people around you that will get you through every time. And then the last thing we've already hit on, so I'll say it quickly, is learn each other's jobs. Make sure you learn every function of the boat, so that if anything goes wrong, that you can handle it on your own.
I love the theme here, and that is really do what works well for you. I think in any world, if it's boating or whatever it is, lots of strong opinions if you go on forums and do some research. And I think using that as a guide and then experimenting with what really works well for you is it's great to see that in practice.
Well, Chris, that's where the intuition, right? So we're going to talk about all kinds of things, but that's where the intuition is so key. Sorry.
That's right. That's exactly right. So the two of you closed on an awesome, well-equipped boat a year ago, but the exciting thing for folks who are looking to join the Leopard community is making the boat yours, right? All the things that happen post-delivery. So walk us through some of your most favorite modifications that you've done to the Leopard 40.
Okay, well, I think my one favorite modification is our solar power and our lithium batteries. I mean, I absolutely love that because the whole time that we're not in a marina, you don't notice that when you're in a marina. So when you're out of a marina, we never ran out of power, and I had coffee every morning.
Right. We're happy to share our modification list with anybody who wants to see it. But if we're talking about what our favorites are, they're really about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the water maker. At first we didn't have a water maker. We waited some time to put one in, and I've never really worried about water until I was on a boat and didn't know if I had enough. So having the ability to make your own clean, good tasting, we have an AccuView water filter too. Those two things to me, I love the most, probably even more than the small dive compressor we have on board.
Awesome. And in terms of, actually, Janet just had a technical question here, a follow-up on, do you know offhand the size of your, actually, I can say it here, just because I know
Yes,
it's 1200 watts of solar on the arch, and then a 900 amp hour lithium battery bank. Is that right?
Yeah, we have
That's how she
300
came.
amp hours. Now, if I had my way about it, I would love to add one more solar panel and one more lithium battery, but
She's perfect.
yeah, she's perfect as she is.
Awesome. Curious. And then just any concerns in terms of safety with the lithium batteries? I know that some folks, it can be controversial for some people. I have a bunch of lithium batteries on my boat that I've had for a while now. You ladies have had yours. Any issues of safety or anything like that?
Not at all. I believe it was just cats that had installed them, and they're in a place that there's nothing else around them that
Right. Good installation is
Yeah.
important. And then do your research, like with any fear that you have about anything, because you'll come across a million on the boat. Do research. If you're uncomfortable with it, don't put it on your boat. You always have a choice.
yeah. And
We love that.
go to the professionals, don't jury rig
Yeah.
things. Have it professionally installed, because that's when you can get into a lot of.
But as two ladies, we always make that choice.
Yeah.
I'd always rather have somebody else do it.
Yeah, it's very important. Sure.
For no other reason to call when it breaks, right? Hey,
Yeah.
what do I do to fix this?
Yes, absolutely. Laurel knows that.
Let's talk a little bit about the tools and resources that the two of you use to plan where to go and know when to go.
Sure. We're so fortunate. As I look at the screen, I think about all these tools that we use that sort of make weather and weather routing so much easier. I think about, Captain Judy, when, back in the 80s, when they didn't necessarily have all this technology, how difficult it would have been. So as I look at this list, I'm really grateful for it. So with navigation, the biggest one we use is Navionics with the Active Captain, and Aqua Maps. Those ones are really clear. They're easy to use. They're succinct. The majority of the people use them based on my experience. There's lots of tutorials. They're fantastic for that. Reviews, right? Active Captain is also really important within both of those navigational programs, because it allows you to read the experience of anybody else who's left a review there, and you can get sort of a local knowledge experience. I wouldn't sail anywhere without the Active Captain also. With weather, we use the ones you see there. We use Windy, we use Predict Wind, we use Wind Finder. They're all fantastic, but they're, again, predictions. So if we really are taking a big trip, and this is advice that we've gotten from really everyone, and I know, Chris, you use this person too, is use the weather router, Chris Parker. If we're taking a trip, we rely on professional services. We certainly don't think at 1 year, 5,000 nautical miles that we would be ready to route ourselves, say, from Fort Lauderdale to where you are, Chris, right now. We would pay a weather router, which takes, it takes a lot of the worry out of when should I leave or what's coming behind me, because you're paying a professional who does this for, I think he does it for everybody as far as I know.
I know.
We use Chris Parker, big important thing. And then the last two things we wanted to share is right now we're on the New River, and in other places where there is a current or a large tide differential, we use iTides, and there are lots of tide apps, but we use iTides because it's got graphics and we can read them.
Yes.
And then finally,
we
like pictures, right? Then finally, I don't know that it's a secret, but it's something I discovered on accident, and that was to use Google Earth.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
I wasn't sure what we were going to be getting into in this ICW, and I felt really nervous about not having been there. And as a teacher, I know that if you want somebody to be comfortable, you try to give them as much of the experience as you can before they do it. And so we went on Google Earth, and it was almost like we could simulate the entire path from maybe coming in Port Everglades to our spot on the New River. We knew how many bridges, and it made it so much more familiar. And then we used it again when we were in Port Lucaya,
Yes.
diving with Christina. We wanted to know what the marina looked like before we went in. And so you'll see the picture there is actually of the marina we stayed at. We wanted to know, okay, where would a catamaran go? Okay, could
Is
possibly
it
go here.
pilings? Is it floating docks? You can kind of see that from the picture, so it's kind of gives you a heads up.
So Google Earth is like the best kept secret, for sure.
Yeah, it's an incredible resource. Even, to your point about knowing in advance and knowing where the wind direction is. Am I going to, will I be set up for a port side tie or a starboard side tie? Like removing the unknowns is great.
Yep.
And then also I've used it to just figure out like, okay, where is that reef in that weird passage I'm about to go
Yes.
through? Super
We
helpful.
do that in the Bahamas too. You can't necessarily see it, so you want to know. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So that's also incredibly helpful. Charlie has a question, and specifically around Key West, which is where we met last year at Stock Island Marina. And Charlie wants to know any favorite anchorages or transient marinas in the Keys or Key West that you'd recommend. They're taking delivery of the Leopard 50 in November and then taking it around to St. Pete. So anything that comes to mind?
Well, there are several anchorages and places that you can go. Mooring balls, there's a place, Bite Key Marina, where you can grab a mooring ball. But my advice for Key West is it fills up fast, and sometimes you have to have 6 months to a year reservation in advance. So just pre-check. But where was that Stock Island Marine Village? Where was that anchoring that we drove through and we were going to drop the anchor there?
Oh, I think it was in the Boca Chica Channel. There's some anchoring. So we stayed at Stock Island Marina Village, which is where we met Chris, and I saw him at the top of his mast. And that was a wonderful marina, lots of amenities, nice boats, wonderful people. Tell Meredith we said hello. But if you want to anchor, I don't know, some of the boats out there anchored outside Key West, you hear about them dragging all the time. So I would definitely read the active captain. And then look inside that Boca Chica Channel. It looks like it's between, Boca Chica and Stock Island. That was our plan B.
Yeah. The Bite, where the mooring balls are.
On the other side,
That's actually a great place if you can get a mooring ball, because they also provide a dinghy dock for your dinghy.
It depends on what you want to do.
Drive in. You don't have to pay extra for it.
Awesome. A lot of people who have joined us today do exactly what's on this slide. Right? They bought a boat and sail with their pet. You have a year of knowledge and experience. Tell us everything we need to know.
We're total gurus. You should listen to everything we say.
Yeah, right. We have 2 toy schnauzers and one one-eyed pirate cat, Ripley. Potty training for the dogs was probably the most challenging and also rewarding once they figured it out. Hey, Pappy, he heard his name. We use the old method of gradual release of responsibility in training our pets.
At the marina.
Yeah. After we reading everything we can, we went online, looked at YouTube, some suggestions. We came up with kind of our own plan for our dog's needs. And we decided that we would first train them how to live on the boat in the marina, where it's a nice, stable, calm environment. And then we can take them for walks as needed. Once they felt home on the boat, potty training began. And I found a nice 4x2 synthetic dog.
2x3.
It's a 4x12. The first 2x3 they looked at and they're like, what is this? So I went to Home Depot and I found a good 4x12 foot synthetic dog grass, and I placed it right across the front of our trampoline, and it fits perfect. I also threw a couple plants in the corners just to kind of entice them, because they are boys and like to lift their legs.
But they're very little dogs.
So we started taking them to the pee pad, and first to see if they could get used to it. And nope, they kept saying the grass on the other side is greener. So we eventually trained them. We had to hold out longer than they did.
Lots of rewards,
Lots of rewards.
reinforcements.
Yep. And now they know how to use it. They go out there and it makes life so much easier. But I know every dog is different. And the key really is just you have to have patience. You know, one thing that was funny kind of is the first person or first animal to learn how to use the outside 4x12 pad was actually Ripley. Yeah, it was amazing. Anyways, for the cat, we dedicate a little space on the forward port cabin, our scuba closet area, and her box, and she has a little perch in there, kind of a quiet place away from the dogs. And we figured out everybody needs kind of their own space. Sure. And the pets will find their own space on the boat.
So really it didn't happen overnight. It was one day where we decided, okay, we're not getting off the boat. Whatever happens, you know, we're not getting off the boat. And it was funny because our older guy, the gray one that looks like Dumbledore, he hopped off the boat and he doesn't hop anywhere. He hopped off 3 times. We had to put him back on. And after that third time,
right.
you know, we were like, oh, this is awful. We felt bad, but he finally squatted down to pee. And then now he'll barely go for a walk because it's so easy for him to just walk to the front. So what I'd have to say about that is do your research, know your pet, and make a plan. I mean,
And for sure, train them.
there's no one way.
For sure, train them or teach them how to use it before you go. Don't expect that they're going to just go to that because they have nowhere else to go.
We put down a pad at our home first so that they got familiar with what that looks like. And so when we transitioned it to the boat, it already had their smell on it. So we thought maybe that was helpful. We don't know. Which is
So
here.
here's a slide to bring some of these things to life.
Okay. So a couple of things that we did just because, you know, we worry is we did the pet knitting. You can see right there. It's good for kids too. It goes all the way around, you know, about 90% of the boat and whatnot. And just because they have little nails and they slide, it's just an added safety measure. And it makes us feel a lot safer for sure.
That's right.
We also have different gear that's specific for them. For example, Margie mentioned the pee pad as well as toys. You know, they have to keep them entertained too because you are on a smaller space. We have packs and carrying things. You see all of it right there. That's the bad one right there. We have a little carrying handle for his life vest because when and if and he has jumped out or fallen in or all of those things have happened once or twice, we need to be able to grab him quickly, or if there's a current, we need to be able to have a boat hook, or a leash or a tether. I mean, just always think about what could go wrong and try, you know, like you would just try to protect yourself with that. So that's our main gear.
Yeah.
Couple of questions in the chat. Dale wants to know what is the model of the dive compressor that you use and why did you choose it and do you like it?
Great question.
Yeah.
Okay, here's why. Originally, we asked Just Catamarans to price out a Bauer Junior, which is, you know, the industry standard. It's wonderful. And it was like $7,000 to $9,000, and it would require the loss of our entire forward peak. Well, I'm a dive instructor, and I love that. I wasn't prepared on a Leopard 40 to give up that much space. So we just looked for alternative options where there are smaller compressors that we wouldn't lose as much space for the amount of diving that we wanted to do, for as petite as we are and as little air as we use per dive. Anyway, we another Leopard 40 big wave, Jeff and Shelley told us about a compressor that they bought at
Through Mantis.
Yeah, through Mantis at the Miami Boat Show. And it's a Mantis, it's a new model dive compressor. We have one of the first ones. So we're really sort of piloting it at this point, and we would be undecided in our opinion.
All right, good. Thank you for sharing that. And then Janet has a great question. I'm always thinking about how to be better at this all the time when hosting people on my boat. But any insight or tips that you can give around how to manage visitors and guests on the boat for a trip longer than one day? I think this might be around like setting expectations in advance of someone coming on the boat, but any maybe 1 or 2 quick tips that you could share on that topic?
It's the communication. You just have to communicate ahead of time. And if all you aren't sure or think you just can't worry about hurting feelings, or, I mean, you have to say things with tact, obviously, but don't hesitate to say something because these are issues you want to resolve. They just don't get better on the boat, right? They don't get better on the boat. So you need to resolve anything and everything ahead of time. And sort of look ahead at what prospective issues may or may not be.
Some people that come on the boat, they just kind of are not really familiar with what to do, what not to do. And
Marine toilets or
people will bring things, and sometimes people will know, they'll research ahead of time, what do you bring on a boat, and other people won't. But you don't have a lot of fridge space, so you have to let people kind of know ahead of time what things they can bring and what things they can't bring, what you have room for and what you don't have room for.
So we heard like soft bags, ask them to bring something that's a soft bag, and whatever they have, like cut it in half. The
No
amount
worries.
that they're not going to wear the same amount that they think that they would. It's really just about living small and being able to keep to yourself. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't say hosting others would be our strength. We tend to be homebodies a lot. My nephew's coming. My nephew's coming August 10th through the 17th with his girlfriend, and he just turned 18. So we'll see.
I
I'm
think
excited to see that.
the thing that I'm always working on is just this inherent flexibility that needs to be baked into inviting someone on the boat.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sure, we can be in this place, but we might be there a little bit early or a little bit later, or
Yeah.
yes, we can pick that date, but we might be somewhere else, right? You can pick one of those, and that's something that's just so different than the rest of the world in terms of planning things.
100%. It's hard because you go from a world like we did with your career where everything is regimented by time, and all of a sudden you tell somebody, well, I can't do that. And it's almost like, whoa, wow. It's hard to conceive, but once you're out here, you kind of understand that, listen, weather rules, man.
That's right.
Weather rules.
Going from a spot on time to a give or take time is,
You just have to be flexible.
it's great, actually. I love it.
One of the benefits of the environment we're in now is that we're still able to buy in some carriers airplane tickets with no change fees. Like there's still some benefits in terms of what the airlines have done to accommodate the pandemic and things like that.
Yeah.
Steph, I loved when we were doing the rehearsal the other day, and you, from a teacher, I made the slide, look at that. From a teacher's perspective, right? You've been with kids all the time. And so you've also been able to see kids and how boat kids are kind of uniquely suited to take on the world. So tell us about what you've seen there.
Right. I love kids, and I'm always fascinated about behavior and why they do the things they do. And I really didn't know what to expect. Since I've been out of the classroom, there haven't been a lot of little kids around me. So I wasn't really sure what to expect with kids on boats, but I've been so pleasantly surprised. And I mentioned to these guys that one of the things that I would love to chat about is how well adjusted those kids are.
Yeah.
We met so many families out there that, they want to do this, or they want to, they wanted to take their kids out of school for COVID, or, this is their dream. And look, I have kids too, kind of like with the pets and us, it's our dream and we have pets. And so I have been really studying and chatting and spending a lot of time with the kids that I've met. And there's just really three big things that I want to share with you parents out there that maybe are thinking about doing this and you just don't know the effects it'll have on your kids. And the first thing I want to tell you is, I don't know your kids, right? So you know your kids better than I do. And anytime we generalize, take that with a grain of salt. But generally speaking, the kids that we have interacted with out there have been articulate and able to hold a conversation with adults. And that would be to see the teenager as well as on down the line. They are interested and engaged. And we didn't fight the device issue.
Oh, no, I didn't see any of them with
I fully expected to. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I fully expected to fight that, and it was like not an issue at all. They were engaged and present, because it matters. Everything you're doing is way more important than what can happen on a screen. If you're flying through an aqua, blissful water on your dinghy, or you're, headed down checking out an octopus. I mean, it's all more interesting than the device. So it was really nice to be able to sit and be able to look kids in the eye and have them, their guard was down. It didn't feel like sometimes a classroom can feel adversarial. They just were relaxed and they were confident. They knew themselves and they were happy. And it wasn't just one boat of kids that we ran into.
No, there were several.
It was several. And it was just, this teacher, a little jaded. It was a little refreshing to see. So if you parents are out there like, should I not? Yeah.
It's so cool because they have these given responsibilities that are just
important.
They're just almost innate to them on living on the boat. It's not, go make your bed type of thing. It's they just do what they need to. They have, you know, even from that little tiny one. I mean, it's really,
Sure.
it's really cool to see.
Yeah, it was really nice to see. So don't hesitate to do that. Knowing your own children, of course.
I love the perspective, and you know, once you get past the romantic idea of being on a boat and sailing, there's a really practical piece of living on the boat that you really have to focus on to have a good experience, right? Because it's not always vacation all the time, right? There's still business as usual. So what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you have a great time on the boat?
Oh my gosh, staying healthy. So for us, that's a pizza up there in that corner that we made out of I believe cauliflower crust.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, remember that?
That's right.
The crust kind of crumbled, but it was delicious. Anyways, eat well.
Yes.
You really, and I love to cook on the boat. I've cooked her stuff that I haven't made for her, like fried rice.
You have time to do things like that. So
Yeah.
you really, you know, put a lot of effort into the foods, because Chris can speak to this also. A lot of times one of the things you're looking forward to the very most is what's for dinner.
Yeah. You want to eat well. You want to learn how to provision well.
Yes.
You don't want to just go grab these quick, easy, ready-made meals. You want to be able to kind of make some meals. I mean, some of those quick, easy meals are good when the seas are rough or whatever, but you want to be able to have some satisfying meals, because that becomes very important to you when you're sailing. You look kind of forward to that, and having the whole cabin smell good when you make bread or whatever is good. So you want to try to stock up on lots of fruits and veggies, because those are probably the one thing that's the hardest to get when you're out on the water. And we have a water maker and a good filter, so you want to drink plenty of water.
Right. You know, if you're just used to moving at all in your life, you want to make sure that you figure out a way to get some exercise, swim, or whatever it is that you can do, so that you can, you know, maintain your stress load for sure.
Yeah, the
Exercise.
routine is really, I found to be really important. You know, just
Truly
some sort of routine to start is incredibly useful. We're running to the top of the hour, so I want maybe a 30-second walk overview of the beautiful pictures on this slide.
My favorite anchorage that we went to while we're in the Bahamas was a place called Lee Stocking Island in the Exumas. It's the location of an abandoned marine research center that still has a coffee cup with coffee in it, bed frames, and Monopoly out. It's so interesting. It's actually going to be written into the young adult book that I'm writing. It's just absolutely interesting the way it just looks like people just left. So I loved that part.
Yeah, I mean, I like all the anchorages, but Flamingo Key probably
in the Raggeds.
It was so, it was down in the Ragged. It was just so peaceful and serene and beautiful sunsets, although you have that all over in the Bahamas. And it was just fun snorkeling. It was a beautiful anchorage.
Awesome. Let's do one piece of advice, and then I'd love to squeeze in a couple questions before we get to the top. So tell us what you do.
Don't procrastinate. If you're thinking about doing this, what are you waiting for? 100% of the shots you don't take, don't go in. I would say just jump
and have fun.
Make a plan, but jump.
You got it. You got to have fun. You know, the one piece of advice I would say is know what your plan is for sailing, what you want to do with it. Purchase the appropriate size boat to fit those plans. It's not all boats are created equal.
Perfect segue into Orhan's question. He says, you know, Steph, you were a dive instructor before. Marji's come from this background of working with engines, and you have just almost set up really well to hop into this life. Orhan says, me and my wife, have lots of passion, but there's always a fear for us to be able to handle the boat in bad situations. What would be your advice to Orhan, who's feeling that right now?
Join the club, brother. Join the club. I mean, all of those things are real and present every single day. And I used to tell my middle school students this, as I used to tell them, you're allowed to be afraid, but you're not allowed to let fear control you. And I mean, just how ironic is it that I have to take my own advice right now every day. And I'm afraid, but I do it anyway, because I really, really want to give this 100%. And it's really rewarding when things go well, and it's terrifying when it doesn't, but it all matters, And it seems like the world out there is so crazy, and this matters, and it makes sense, and it's relevant, and the people you meet, Chris included, just genuinely great people who are your tribe. They want to do the same things that you want to do, and they want to help you, and they're
They will.
international. They don't care about your religion or your politics. It's just, where are you coming from? Where are you headed? What's going on? And I love the sense of community, from our fantastic broker to our incredible Just Catamarans who helped us with the modifications, to our sailing instructors, to you, Chris, that is, kind of helped us sort through this little storytelling that we're doing today.
Don't give fear a seat at the table.
Don't give fear a seat at the
Otherwise,
table.
you're going to stay at the table.
That's right. You'll stay at the table, which we did. We did for a little while, that too.
I love
And
it.
we might for a few more days. Who knows?
I love it. Well, thank you both for spending an hour with us. There's some questions that we didn't get to in the chat. There's an email address for Katie, who's on the webinar with us. If you shoot her a question, she'll either answer them herself or route it over to Steph and Marji. But thank you guys so much for spending an hour with us and sharing your knowledge. We'll leave it there, and then reminder for folks to keep an eye out for the 2-question survey that will pop up here in a minute. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.